Hi, this is Carrie Green, and I wanted to walk you through my Fundamentals of Responsible Alcohol Service course. This is my welcome page where I provide basically the overview, the synopsis of the course, and kind of a summary of what the learning objectives are, as well as in bold what the ultimate goal of this test or of this course would be. The intent of this is to take a face-to-face course that my husband actually has to present in his restaurant and create a hypothetical situation where they could do this by computer. Now, you wouldn't want them to, you can't just give them the test online without having to subscribe to a larger program. But you could create a program like this. And then if a student demonstrates a good score on a practice test, then you could essentially schedule them to take the actual Serve Safe Alcohol course. So this is kind of where I'm coming from here, which the intent is to present the material and make sure that a student is ready to sign up to take the test that the company has to pay for. And so this is what I explain in the welcome page, as well as a series of course instructions that walk them through kind of how to do this. And again, this is meant to be done sequentially. So students would then, there's a My Instructor page, although they could really skip that. There's modules. I've got 7 modules. Week 1 is an introduction. Week 7 is the actual practice test that they would have to make an 80 or better in order to schedule the real exam. Week 1 is an introduction. The introduction is intended to take young servers and convey to them the importance of the course. So this is a very simple objective, really to get them to understand the entire purpose and to see what that is, why they're doing this. And I have them put that in their own words because to me, I think that's an important piece of learning is to recognize, to understand it yourself. Week 2 is about alcohol law and your responsibility. I specified the series of alcohol laws. This one is probably your dullest section in that people often check out when they're talking about laws. So I tried to vary the instruction. I included a pre-test of some kind in every module because I think it's important for students to have a way to check their perceptions and make sure what's correct and what's not. Every module has a section for concepts and vocabulary. And then there's a number of different presentation styles. You can see I have Google Slides. I've created several of those here. These all are from various other modules that kind of show people what to do. And I've reused pictures and some of them are very straightforward. I also relied on Prezis as a way to do this, to present the information in a format that was a little more engaging. I relied on the Prezis primarily for material that really needed to have a focus on specific objectives. So if you're talking about stopping service to intoxicated guests, you want them to focus in on one thing at a time, as opposed to, an overall signs of intoxication. So I tried to consider that as I was preparing the presentation material. So if you go through here, you can see that I have the presentations listed. I have a real world scenario that connects to an actual case in Houston, asks them to reflect on that. And every module has a summary piece and every module has an assessment. And the assessments are basically multiple choice that walk them through kind of what that looks like. So you can see that people would simply read the question and answer it. And the module assessments are usually 8 to 10 questions. You go to module 3, you're talking about alcohol's path through the body. Again, I have the smaller, the specific learning objectives there, the pre-assessment piece, concepts, several supporting videos that are embedded, as well as an image and summary. This particular unit includes a section where they apply their knowledge through calculating blood alcohol content and blood alcohol content scenarios, where essentially they go in and they look at this question about this size person and what would, estimate what somebody's alcohol content would be. So again, that's kind of their real world scenario. Module 4 is going to be about recognizing and preventing intoxication. Again, has the module specific learning objectives, as well as a pre-assessment that's basically based on kind of this reflection piece from the NIH about the tendency to serve intoxicated guests once they've already shown signs of intoxication, ways to prevent that, some videos from the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, a graphic to show them about alcohol content, and then the assessment piece here, which again is a multiple choice assessment piece. Module 5 is on checking identification, and that one, again, kind of you have this overview about how to check identification with the learning objectives that are specific to that. The concepts, I have a pre-test here that basically walks them through whether or not they think they know. Now, I transitioned from using Google Forms in the earlier modules to using it actually here within the course sites, just to kind of try different things in this particular unit. I think actually using the information within the assessment piece within course sites was a little bit easier. And so I have presentations, I have an application blog where they reflect on what they think. And again, possible responses, checking identification summary, and then the multiple choice assessment piece. And of course, the module assessment pieces are intended to present them with practice with those multiple choice questions that they'll face actually on the ServSafe test. Module 6 is the handling difficult situations. This one has a number of different graphics that people would walk through. Read through that. There's a pre-test, a difficult situations presentation, one about stopping service to intoxicated guests. This is the one I showed you earlier, that it's very important that they understand one thing at a time. Then an apply your knowledge, where they would go in and essentially choose kind of how they think the server would have handled the situation, and they can explain for themselves. And it's a reflection piece, really, but it gives them very specific situations. Then I have a flow chart. These are less common difficult situations that kind of help them think about, what to do first. If you see something, if you see a person who is intoxicated, how do you handle finding alternate transportation, and kind of takes them through that process. And then we've got the rate the response survey, which is going to be a way for them to essentially choose from a survey about whether or not they think the server handled it correctly. Let me leave this. And so once they finish that, they do have in Module 6 a multiple choice assessment. And Module 7 is the actual ServSafe pre-test, is what I would call it. 50 questions. They would have to get an 80 or better on that in order to be able to take the final, the actual test. So I hope this was informational for you, and I look forward to feedback.